Now, this is an individual question, but as we understand the answer from the different people around us, I think this might help us understand the singles scene more than anything else. The question, why am I single?
You start this one, I don't want to.
She was going to.
Welcome back to LDS Singles Anonymous. I'm Linnea.
I'm Buzz.
I'm Mackenzie. I'm Amy.
And Mackenzie is joining us. You should have seen in the first 3 episodes that we did, she wasn't here. So let's do a brief introduction of
Yes,
Mackenzie.
absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. Well, I'm Mackenzie. I love my name. It has 3 syllables, and it perfectly matches the opposite direction of my last name. And my favorite color is green, mostly the color of trees in September, the sun shining through them. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, but I do not like the humidity. I also don't have an accent. And I have lived in Arizona now for a year. Can you believe it's been that long?
I cannot. Oh my
And
gosh.
I consider myself to be pretty educated. I have studied neuroscience at BYU and an MBA from the University of Utah. And so I have blue veins with red blood.
Why are we all single?
Well, let's just look at the stats. 50 years ago, 30 years ago, even 15 years ago, the amount of singles was way less, both in the world and in the church. Mm-hmm. And now, when they came out and said that over half the church from this age to this age is single, I was floored. Why? Why are there so many more singles now than 20 years ago, or 40 years ago, or 60 years ago? Seriously. Or even 10 years ago. Yeah. Why are we single?
Which, I mean, technically, it's not more singles because we're all still the same people. It's less marriages.
Yeah.
Okay, why are there less marriages?
Yeah, or more.
Divorces.
Yeah, exactly.
Divorces. Oh.
Maybe we don't get into that one.
I would not wish. I would not wish on a divorce on the worst enemy I own. Those are ugly and awful, and they are never nice. Here's one thought that I had. And I watch a lot of podcasts, especially outside of the church, and I keep getting the question, and they say, oh, what can you give me? What can you do for me? And I thought about that a lot. And I sit here and go, okay, so I've worked all my life. I work pretty hard. I've built a nice little house I live in, and I've got a car that gets me to and from work every day. And when I'm hungry, I go out and eat what I want. And I have enough money to pay the bills and to keep myself fed and to keep myself busy, because with the callings and the hobbies, there's always something going on. And so, yeah, what can someone give me, really? And then I look at it, or try to look at it from your aspect. You guys are educated, you have good jobs, you own homes, you own cars that get you to and from work, you've got your own bank accounts, you've got your own, you've got enough to pay the bills, and you eat when you want, and what do you need? 50 years ago, you needed a man because he had the house and he was going to put a roof over your head. Mm-hmm. And you had to have the man because he was going to pay for this and this and this. And you had to have the man because he was going to protect you, and he was going to all these things provide. And you don't need that. You don't need that.
You can own property now.
Right. Ooh, that's pretty fancy. But seriously, when you ask the question, I got to scratch my head and go, I don't know what I could offer, really. I mean...
Which, is that intimidating? Like, how does that feel from a guy's perspective?
Really what they taught you from the age of about 14 is you're this, and then you get to be my age and you realize I can't give them any of those things. So how does that make me feel? I've never really thought about that. I guess useless. So, yeah, and what am I supposed to bring? Comic relief? No, they can do that on YouTube. They could buy a giant teddy bear, and that would be better than me.
Oh.
But, no, seriously, I think this is one of the big reasons. I'm old. If I were to, which is kind of my proclivity, to find someone my age, I'm not going to be having children. I'm not going to have a family. I am now officially in my 50s. If I find someone that's my same age, which is really what I look for, I'm not going to have kids. I'm not going to. So that whole side of it, oh, well, that's why you get married, so you can have kids and you can have a family and da-da-da. Well, not for me. So, yeah. I guess I'm opening the question to everybody. What do you bring, or what can someone bring to your life now that we have these lives where we're self-sufficient? We are self-sufficient. Everything we need, we can get ourselves. And we can do it really fast because
really
we've got phones and computers. And if
Amazon.
I want that, I can have it delivered to my door in 35 minutes.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
pretty incredible.
That's true. I mean, the message that we have been given for forever is you are here on this earth to make covenants, and one of those covenants is the covenant of marriage, and you get married so that you can start an eternal family. And that is what we have been told forever. And when you do reach an age where that is maybe not a possibility, or when you are questioning, is that really what I want? Why get married then?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. In fact, I yesterday was contemplating a similar question. I was driving and I was imagining myself, okay, well, like, what if I were to get married? And I literally realized I have assigned myself the label of an identity factor of single. Like, single has become part of my identity to where I don't know what that looks like to not be single anymore. Or to not even go to a singles ward where people are very similar to me, and like we can all talk about our careers and our hobbies and things that kind of shift a little, maybe not go away, but shift with the natural merging of two lives into one. And so, like, yeah, why get married? I think that is a really personal question that the church tends to talk about in a general way, whereas generalities in general aren't really good ways to think about things, because, like has been talked about before with the rule and the exception, we're never the exception. But I also don't think like there are rules really, and so like to boil it down to like this is what you do and this is why and this is what you're going to get out of it. There is nothing on this planet that is stable enough to always produce the same outcomes no matter what you do, especially the outcome of happiness. So it's just as people are people and always changing.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to, like, in, growing up, we were all told, like, well, this is what we do when we want to get married and you got to have a family. And so we're like, oh, okay. But the world that we live in is so different. And so we don't necessarily need to. Like, before it was necessary. And so it was like, oh, this is how you live a good life. You get education, you get married, you have children, you form a family, right? And that's the way to be successful and happy. And whereas because we live in a different world today where I don't have to be married to do some of those, a number of those things, then, and so that advice, and it's tricky because how can the church can only really give us general advice because they are talking to the world, right? And they are talking to children, and they are talking to 65-year-olds, they're talking to single, married, widowed, divorced, everybody. And because we have this idea of an eternal family, how can you say, like, nah, it's cool, like, just don't worry about getting married, right? It's fine. Like, they themselves, all of them got married, right? And they're happy, and they have families, and they followed that path, maybe not necessarily in the direct ways that we tend to think of, but they've essentially followed that path, and they're happy, and that's served them well. Whereas, like, for example, for me at least, when it comes to dating in particular, I went to school to get a degree. I was not there to get married. I was a little scared of Utah Mormon boys. I was like, oh boy, they all want to get married, and like, I'm not here for that right now, not now, right? And I was talking to this guy, and he was really disappointed because we got to this fireside, and he saw a girl there that he had gone out with once or twice, right? And she was there with somebody else, and he was kind of whining anyways, but I was trying to be like sympathetic, and I was like, oh, like, I haven't gone on a date in a long time. Like it's okay, right, to not like be in a relationship right away, because he was probably like 22, and I said I hadn't gotten on a date in a while, and he was like, "You need to get on that." And I was just like, no, I don't. But I went home and I prayed about it, because I was like, well, should I be? Maybe I've just been, not caring about this when I should have been. I prayed about it, and the answer that I got was, no, you have other things to worry about right now. And so I think it's personal for everyone. And so for me, dating was not a priority for a number of years because of other things that I was dealing with in my life. And so I think that need to get married, but it's tricky because the church can't say, well, it's okay for you, you should wait, you need to do this, right? Because we ourselves have to seek our own personal revelation to understand when, why, and how marriage and dating is important. And not every dating scenario needs to lead to marriage, and I think that just dating and getting to know people, it helps you understand yourself, it helps you understand other people, understand people of the opposite sex, right? And it can just be a good experience, and it's a personal thing.
Mm-hmm. I feel like beyond getting the personal revelation then is there's also a little bit of a logical thing about it. We were kind of talking about it earlier. Why? What do you bring to my life? I had a friend who got married recently, and she had gone through several dating relationships that had gotten fairly serious, and she always got to the question similar to that, what are you bringing to my life? But more, how can you make my life better than what it is? If you cannot bring something that makes me happier, if you cannot make my life easier, not easier necessarily, but better or more happy, then why would I commit to something like that? So that's, I think, maybe part of it, is trying to figure out that point. Will it actually make you happier?
So I think I think social media and being able to see everybody's relationships in real time has absolutely crushed us. I don't know about anybody else. I will speak for me and only me. The fear of failure is way bigger than the slim possibility of success. So, and I don't know if it's because I sit and watch and I see people's divorces up close, or because I've been through some ugly stuff in my life. People come to me to vent or to get to get advice, I guess, on where to go next. But I see it all the time, and I hear the stories all the time. So is the upside worth the risk of the downside? And it would have to be perfect for me to go, yeah, I think. For instance, I don't date. The couple of times I have gone on dates with just any old buddy, usually by the end of the date, they want to surgically attach themselves to my leg or something, and we're going to get married tomorrow. And like, well, hey, relax. This is, we just went out for salads. But that's a giant turnoff.
Salad, I know.
Oh, salad. Well, the wrong salad can be a terrible turnoff. Salads can be great, or they can be awful.
They're very awkward on a date.
Yeah.
They are. They're surprisingly messy.
Yeah. I know, you'd think it'd be like
surprisingly messy.
It's not.
Not a good date. And you go to Salad and Go, there's no place to sit down. Where are you going to go? A park bench? Come on. Stop. We live in Arizona. It's 192 degrees outside. A couple more degrees, it could melt
if you're
steel.
lucky.
You're not going to go out and sit in a melting park bench and eat a salad. It's not going to happen.
Ice cream's a lot better for that.
Yeah, well, it melts fast, but that's why you got to eat it fast.
Good for short first dates.
Yes, short first dates. We're going to have ice cream. It's going to be 4 minutes. 4 minutes and we're done. All right.
That'll be a discussion for later.
What to eat on a date.
But going back.
So that's kind of one of my thoughts is I think we fear failure because we've seen so many.
We have seen a lot.
That's true.
Well, and on the reverse side, we've seen so many magical successes because of...
Name one.
Well, I mean, if you look on Instagram, Facebook, and you see only the perfect things.
So I think we're not accepting less than perfect because I need this and this. You know, my needs are greater than my wants. I think now our needs are met, so we're in the want world, and we're like, what do I want? I want perfect.
I want perfect.
And we sound just
We don't
like
sound like that.
No, I do. That was me. That's
Good impression of you.
when I'm talking to myself. That's what I sound like.
I want perfect. With the flutter.
Absolutely. So
That's a good point. That's a good question. I feel like before because there were more needs and because it was what everyone was doing in the church and even outside of the church, it was more the path that everyone followed. You went and got married. That's just what you did. People were more willing to look past flags, red flags, maybe even yellow flags, you know, flags that are like, well, that's not great, but this is what you do.
yeah.
This is what I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
So he's a member of the church and he's a male.
That's good enough for
That's
me.
good enough for me. People were more willing to do that.
Yeah,
And
well, I think you're absolutely
we're
correct.
not as willing.
Well, and I'm going to give them a little credence. They learned who each other were through the relationship, and they may have gotten married very early in that. But I think we look at our grandparents. Well, okay, so truth be told, I don't have a lot of successful relationships in my family. I have lots of grandmothers and only two grandfathers. And there's not a lot of successful relationships around me, so I tend to see the fault real quick, you know. And when my grandfathers were divorced, there were many times that they were divorced. They were all very ugly, and I've heard all those stories all my life. But I think when we look at the happy grandparents, we're seeing 60 years of work to learn each other and to compromise and to find happy ground and all those things. And we're not seeing... It's similar to, we just had a couple of missionaries come home. And when missionaries come home, they say, oh, let me tell you how great a mission is. It's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. And everybody goes, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And then they go and they go, oh my goodness, this is the hardest thing ever. I have never struggled like this ever. But they told me all these great things. And then when the person that struggled like crazy and wanted to go home and da-da-da-da-da, and they finally get home, they go, the mission was great, and let me tell you why it was great. I think that's, again, we're kind of getting poisoned by seeing our grandparents and seeing these people in the ward and seeing the apostles and, you know, the members of the church that are going to be speaking to us. We see 30, 40 years of hard work to get that relationship to where it is. We want that right now, and so we're not going to jump into something unless it's what they've got. Well, there was a awesome a story, and we'll probably cut this out, but there was an awesome story. The prophet, and I think it was President Kimball, he had this set. He was going to make enough money so he could do this. And she wanted to make enough money she wanted to save enough money to do this. And it was like their first Christmas together. And his gift was, we're going to wherever, like Hawaii or something like that. And her gift is, I wanted this for the kitchen. And they got to the time, and he said, hey, guess what? Da-da-da-da, we're going to Hawaii. No, I wanted this. Well, guess what? He went without her. Because she wasn't going to go, and they had a nice big fight, and she ended up getting, if I remember the story right, she got what she wanted for the kitchen. He got what he wanted in the vacation, and they came back and they were fine with it. Now that usually doesn't work now because you're going to hold that grudge forever. But they were fine with it and they made it work. But this says there are troubles in first year of marriage, but we see the backside. We see the missionary coming home go, everything was wonderful, and let me tell you about these great experiences. They tell you 6 great experiences, and we should do the math. 2 years, 18 months, 6 great experiences? There were lots of not great experiences there. And I think we see that. And so we're going, oh, unless I get the perfect, I'm not jumping in. And I will be the first to admit, I am in that. I have that tattooed across the front of my head. If it ain't perfect, I ain't jumping in.
Well, and I think there's so much pressure to make a relationship look perfect. And so, especially with social media, like so many of us, I go on my Facebook and it's marriage, baby, and everyone's so happy, and he was just so wonderful and adorable, and I had to take a picture, and here he is, and these are all the things I love about him, and I'm happy that you love your spouses, that's great. But it's easy to look at that and think, oh, everyone has this perfect relationship, when in fact, if you actually know those people, you know that they fought over toothpaste the other day, and that they, had a disagreement about Christmas gifts. And so I think that sometimes people who are in relationships feel like they have to project this image of, oh, everything's fine, everything's perfect, everything's great, because there's that pressure not only to get married, but they're like, oh, you told me when I got married that everything would be perfect and everything would be happy, and so it has to be. And so even if it's not, we have to put forward this image that it is, and we don't want to scare off those single people. We don't want to freak them out and be like, actually, maybe it's not that great, or maybe it's hard. Even if it's not great, like that it's hard, and that it takes work, and that it's not, I got married, and now we just live happily ever after, and everything's perfect.
Well, and I've definitely heard those comments where people are like, marriage is hard. And I've heard people also say missions are hard. They do sometimes say it, but it's something that you can't really understand until you're in it, which is, that comes with any situation. So I don't know if it's even enough to hear that it's hard, because we know that.
In theory.
We understand that. Like, a lot of us have dated a lot. We've been in relationships. We know a lot of people. And so we do know that it's hard. We do know that building a relationship is difficult. And so taking that a step beyond, we understand that conceptually. So I don't know if that realization is necessarily enough to convince us to say, oh, as long as you go in with your eyes wide open, it'll be okay. So we need to open our eyes, and therefore we're going to be willing to take the step. I don't know if that's enough.
It's a miracle that any 2 people on this planet with billions of people on it pick each other at the same time at all.
That's true.
Like, if you think about it, so many times I'm just flabbergasted. Every time somebody posts a picture like, oh, dating, or like, oh, together, I'm like, wow. How? These 2 people could have picked anybody, and somehow at the same time they wanted to get to know each other. Like, that's really incredibly miraculous.
True.
Like, the statistics are that it happens because it's real. But the statistics should also be, how is that even possible? So it's pretty miraculous, I think, that relationships work at all.
Yeah. And that might go into another part of why we're all single. Beyond fear, it's also doubt. Like, is that even a possibility? Like, how is that possible?
Why even try?
Why even try?
Because perfect isn't out there, so.
Taking you back to that, yeah. Perfect isn't out there.
And that's why I think it's good to, identify what we think perfect is. So I'm almost positive that, we probably each think something else is perfect when we say perfect. Because I've never really particularly been attracted to my definition of perfect, because my number one attribute in a relationship is being able to respectfully disagree and enjoy the process of it. And I'm also thoroughly adamant that I will never make up my mind, because I'm not done, and I haven't seen it all, and I haven't done it all, and I'm totally fine with change, and I think we all change together. So what attributes are going to help me feel safe to grow into who I'm on my way to being, while they're on their way to being who they are being? And that's, I think, probably something that's intimidating, is finding people who are going to be okay, that I'm not going to be the same me 10 years from now, and that I'm okay with them not being the same them that they are right now. And that's a beautiful thing, because if we believe repentance is for the past, I believe it's also for the future. That we're meant to change, and that's a good thing. I think in general, a lot of people are resistant to change, but the fact is we all will be changing, even if our motives may not change, or like what that looks like may not change. And to be okay with that, and to be okay with the journey and how long it takes for this or that to happen, because some people are water, some people are fire, some people are air, some people are earth, and we're all elements of all of those, and that we need all of those. And so it's not just because you're this or that that makes this or that happen in your life, or this or that be something that you want. Because like, I have a lot of attributes that I think classically would be given to men, of like, I'm very proactive and very goal oriented and very go get the tree if I want the tree kind of a thing. But also like a squirrel, like kind of person, like it's all there, like we're all of it. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to recognize in ourselves, that we're not done and we're not in a box either. So.
Yeah. Well, mind if I go ahead? There's this idea of people having both, there's a masculine energy and there's a feminine energy, and the masculine energy tends to be, they talk about it like that straight line, right? It just goes from A to B, and there's just no question, there's no wandering, it's just from there to there. Whereas women tend to think in more of a circular pattern, and we tend to think of, well, how does this, okay, you want me to get to the tree, but how is that going to affect, like, the ladybug on the grass? Like, am I going to step on a ladybug? Should I go around the ladybug, right? We're, like, thinking, like, oh, and how's that going to affect my friend? Does she need to also come to the tree, right? We tend to think in, there's just a little bit more that we tend to include into that thought process. And I think that the idea is that one is not better than the other. You need both of them. And so individually within us, we need to use different energies at different times. But I think that something actually that I think might be preventing people from wanting to be in relationships or from performing them is because we've been told, like women, we've been told that we need to have a feminine energy, right? That might be like more light, and I realize that my like voice gets higher as I talk about this, but it's this, yeah, it's like this like sweet, quiet, accommodating, feminine, whatever it is, energy, and nurturing, right? And then there's more of a masculine, big, strong, tough energy. And when the world and the way that the working world is really built around that masculine energy, and that's why sometimes why it's hard for women to get into that working world is because we bring a feminine energy to it, and so there's a clash there, and it's hard for people to mesh those. So we've developed a lot more masculine energy traits, right? Being single, I have to provide and protect myself, and so I've developed attributes that might be considered more masculine. And so it's tricky when men have been told, oh, especially in the church, we have very traditional roles, and so it's like, well, I am the man, and I provide and I protect, and I'm the woman, and I nurture and bear children, or whatever it is. And when it's like, wait, we both go to work, and we both have to feed ourselves, and we both have to form friendships and social circles and fulfill our church callings, who's what now? And I think that can create a little bit of, I don't want to say an identity crisis, but like a confusion about where do I stand, what's your role, what's my role, and why do I need to get married?
Sure. I have a friend, an acquaintance. He knows who I am, I know who he is. He is a multi-billionaire. And we're sitting over lunch one time, and he said, make sure you understand this one thing. When it's time to hire somebody for your business, do not hire another you. That's what you think you want.
Yes.
You think you want another you, somebody that can do everything that you do, but just do more of it. That is exactly the opposite. You want somebody who can do all the things you don't. Mm-hmm. And I think we've forgotten how to do that, especially in dating, especially in the singles world. We forget that someone there with something very different from us can complement us and complete something. Like you say, fire and water and earth, and somebody that can put that together and make something more complete. I think we've forgotten how to do that, or we're not willing to try, or we're not willing to work toward it. We want somebody just like us that's going to be our buddy and going to just, okay, and then, we can go to the next step and everything's going to be cool. And I don't know where we lost it, and I don't know where we find it, but I think that is a huge part. I think we've forgotten how to look for someone that can complement our weaknesses.
Well, the only way to be okay with that is to be okay with maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
to be
what?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what?
It's the same fear you were talking about of maybe failing. I think it's a very similar reason why we have a hard time finding people who are our opposite, because, well, that's uncomfortable.
Sure.
To be like, I want to
Sure.
go to Hawaii and I want a kitchen thing.
Right.
And to not be okay with saying, well, then I'm going to do this and you can have that. And that's great. We can each have what we
Right.
want. It takes work and effort and being self-aware and honest with ourselves to say, it's okay if I happen to be wrong about this thing, or that we're both right. It's
Yeah.
okay to both be right too.
I used to think the pride that was going to ruin the world was, oh, I'm rich and I'm not going to give it to you poor people. No. I think the pride that's going to ruin the world is I cannot admit that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And if I cannot admit that I'm wrong,
Yep.
on a gospel level, I can't repent, because that's the first thing, is going, yes, I did something wrong. But in the singles world, in the dating world, in the relationship world, if we're not willing to say I'm wrong, then we're creating a wedge in that relationship that's only going to get bigger and bigger. And they say that selfishness is the root of every sin that you can name. And you go through them and you go, wow, maybe not all of them, but darn near. As individuals, we need to be a little more humble. We need to be a little bit more teachable. We need to be a little bit cast off the pride and be okay being wrong sometimes.
Be a little less certain, because certainty can be
Right.
quite the downfall.
Yep.
I think we already figured it all out.
Yep.
Well, and tying that in as well with the complementary person in employment or in relationships. If you think you are right and you have that pride, then you can't see someone's different aspects as being right as well. And that is what
Yeah.
also restricts you from finding someone who would be complementary or would be a good partner to you, because you think, well, you do something different than I do. I'm right, I'm perfect, so therefore you must be wrong. That's a red flag. No. Which it might not be a red flag. In fact, it might be a green flag. It might be like a, yes, this is actually
Yeah,
a really good
usually
thing.
it's a
You
green
need
flag.
someone who is going to temper you or to bring balance. And so having that humility and being willing to look at the other. There's the concept of the other. It's you or your group, and then there's the other, which you tend to think of them as the enemy. But if you can look at them as not being lesser or not being wrong, but as just being different and being able to accept that, that's going to open you up to a lot more possibility and a lot more peace within yourself as well.
And potentially there's something better than I thought that was the answer.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because other ideas sometimes
Yeah.
turn out better. But I feel like we've jumped around on a lot of subjects here. But to tie it all in, I don't think that there's one of these short little episodes we can come to this is why we're single.
Yeah.
There are obviously a lot of different reasons. But I think we'll cap it here. If you have maybe ideas of why you're single or other things that you think like this is why marriage is not something that I'm looking for, or this is a reason that I would want to get married and I just haven't found that yet in a person, send us your ideas, send us your thoughts. What are your reasons for yes? What are your reasons for no? And we can hopefully discuss those on further episodes, because again, this is not something we can figure out in just 20 minutes.
And we are not the authorities. We are not the authorities. I
Definitely
want to
not.
learn. I
I
want
only
to
know
see
me.
what these people,
Yes.
when
Yeah.
they're emailing us and when they're sending us messages, I want to see their feelings. I want to see their life. Because as I understand them better, I can not only understand myself better, but the scene that I'm in. I'm trying to help the scene I'm trying to help. I'm the stake representative. I want to help the singles in my stake. And I don't know how to do that because they won't come to anything. I need to find out, where they're at. Because the more I understand, the more I can help. And the more I understand, the better the singles scene can be in our area. And it's finding friends, it's finding people, it's getting closer, it's being happier. Because at the end of the day, we want to have joy, we want to have peace, we want to feel like we belong, and we want to be loved. So yeah, definitely put your comments below, send us emails directly, and if you have any questions, our next episode is going to be answering questions from our viewers. So jump in,
Send
we'll
them
answer your
over.
questions. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you on the next episode
Of LDS Singles Anonymous.
You got it.